Okay, so today, guys, we're going to be comparing data displayed in dot plots. So we've already taken a look at it this week, but we're going to dig a little deeper. So we're going to compare two groups of data in dot plots by writing descriptions of the shape, center, and spread. Don't worry, you'll find out what all these things mean. So the essential question that we're working to answer today is, how do you compare two sets of data displayed in dot plots? Okay, so here's all of our new terms. So first is dot plot. A dot plot is a type of graph used to analyze a set of data, especially with respect to its center and spread. Range is the difference, which means we're going to do what? Subtract. Difference means subtract. So range is the difference between the greatest and least values in a set of data. It's also called the spread. Mode is the data value that occurs most often. Median is the middle value of the data when it is in numerical order, which means like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so from least to greatest, and it's also known as the center. If you need to pause it so you can finish your terms. Okay, so the next term is center. So center is where there is an equal amount of data on each side. It's also known as the median. And shape, it discusses the symmetry and distribution. So it means how the dots are distributed on the graph of the dots on the dot plot. And then an outlier is a value that is much greater or much less than the others in the data set. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this graph. So what do you see? Of course, we see dots. I know that is the most popular response. But some of the things that you want to consider when looking at it is to notice that the graph goes from 28 to 35. That it looks fairly evenly distributed, which means that there's about 1 to 2 dots on most of the points. And let's see what else. So most of the people have a length of 31. That's the most common number. And the majority of people have between 30 and 34. So these are just kind of the things that we want to think aloud when we're analyzing dot plots. So let's take a deeper look at this example. So people once used body parts for measurements. For example, an inch was the width of a man's thumb. In the 12th century, King Henry I of England stated that a yard was the distance from his nose to his outstretched arm's thumb. The dot plot shows the different lengths in inches of the so-called yards for 7th grade students in a class. So first it says, describe the shape of a dot plot. So like we just wrote in our definition, shape is going to be the symmetry and distribution. So I would say, and it says, are they evenly distributed or grouped to one side? So the dots are fairly evenly distributed with most in the middle, right? Yes. Okay, so now it says, what value best describes the center of the data? So the center is going to be the median, or where there's the same number of dots on each side. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and cross it out, one on the left and one on the right, and work my way in. So one on the left, one on the right, 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 left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, here. So that is my middle dot. So the center is 31.5. So that means that there's the same number of dots on each side. All right, so now it says describe the spread, which is another word for range. So the spread, so the data starts at 28. And it goes to, so it ends at 35. So the range is the distance between the two. So 35 minus 28 So let's see, 35 minus 30 is 5, and then 2 more, so it's going to be 7. So the range is 7. Okay, so let's keep looking. So another way to do it is you can write out all of the responses from smallest to largest, because what this data looks like is that each dot represents 1. So if I write it out, it would be 28, 29, but there's 2 at 29, so 29, 29, then 30, 30.5, 30.5. So that's how you would write out the data, and then there would be 3 at 31, 31, 31, 31. But we can just use our dots to find all the information we need. So if we look back at our definitions, we know range is the difference between the greatest and the least values. So my greatest value is 35. And my least value is 28. So I'm going to do 35 minus 28, which we did on our last slide, is 7. Mode is the data value that occurs most often. So I am looking here at the only one with 3 dots. So it's 31. And then median we found last time by crossing them out from left to right. Or I'm sorry, outside in. Left, right, left, right. So 31.5. And are there any outliers? So even though it looks like the 28 and the 35 are a little bit further than the rest, that's within 1 unit of the others. So we're going to say no, there's no outliers. Okay, so I want you to take a minute and think about this. How do you compare 2 sets of data displayed in dot plots? So we've just analyzed and thought about 1 set of data. So what if we were looking at 2 sets of data? What information would we look at and consider in comparing the 2? Okay, so you should have thought about it and looked at and decided what we're considering with 2 sets of data. So what we're looking at is the spread, the mean, I'm sorry, not the mean, the median, the range, the shape, all of the things that we just identified with the last graph are ways that you're going to compare 2 sets of data. So now we're looking at 2 sets of data, and we're going to compare the 2. So the dot plots show the heights of 15 high school basketball players and the heights of 15 high school softball players. So describe the shape of the dot plots. So we are going to look first at softball players and the shape. Let's see. Looks like all the data is 5'6" or less, right? So we can put that. And it also peaks, so it has a large amount at 5'4". Now let's look at basketball. So basketball, most of their data is 5'8" or more. There's just a few left that are less, sorry. So most data at 5'8" or more. And let's see. So I would say in general, even the graphs, you can tell that the softball players are shorter than basketball. But using common sense, I think we could guess that as well. So now let's look at the value that best describes the center of the data. So center is another word for the median. And how do we find, I misspelled that, sorry. How do we find the median? So with the median, we are crossing them off from the outside in. So one from the left, one from the right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. So that's my middle there. I'm going to do the same thing over here for the basketball players. Okay, so my median for the softball players is 5 feet 4 inches, and my center is going to be 5 feet 8 inches. All right, so now describe the spread, which we talked about is the same as the range. So spread is the range. So spread of softball. So the shortest player for softball is 4 foot 11 inches, and they go up to 5 feet 6 inches. And then the spread of the basketball player heights, because with the spread we're really focusing on the lowest and the highest number. Range, we actually do the subtraction, but still both are going to be involved. So 5 foot 2 inches for basketball, short guy on there, and then 6 feet 0 inches for basketball. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at these two classes. So what I want you to do is go ahead and press pause on your notes and finish them up, and then you can check your work. Okay, so hopefully you figured all this out and you're just checking your work. So the shape of each one, so the distribution. So I would say for class A, there's clusters from 4 to 6, and there's also a cluster from 12 to 14, and there's a gap of no data in between there from 7 to 11. Then for class B, it's mostly from 3, so clustered, oops, my battery is running low, clustered from 3 to 9. Alrighty, so I'm gonna fill it in and let you guys check. Alright, so go ahead and take a look. So both graphs are centered at 6. The spread is from 4 to 14 on A and 3 to 9 on B. Alright class, press pause and check your work, and then do this last problem. This is how you'll see it on a test. Good luck on it.